Right, it's your Geordie Journos, Stamford Bridge. Anybody will know my opinion if you've just sat, I've done a half an hour live here from Stamford Bridge talking about debacle. I think it was a disaster class from Newcastle United in many ways, given the context and what happened. So I'm really interested. Everyone on the live was really interested to hear what Eddie Howe said. Was really interested to hear your two opinions as well on the game. Jordan, I'll come to you first. Thoughts on what you've just witnessed here, and a little bit about the press conference.
So on the press conference, I'll leave that at Dom because I couldn't hear Eddie Howe.
Right.
I can see the Stamford Bridge press room. It's a bit of a disaster to get a seat if you're late in, which I was. But anyway, we'll come on to that. Yeah, performance. Same old, same issues.
Nothing was a bit worse because of the context. I do.
Well, I'll use Dom's term before. 1 step forward last week, 2 step forwards. Sorry, 2 step back this week. I mean, you came to a Chelsea side today. I mentioned you at the start. Had chance to always make Mauricio Pochettino last week.
He was on the cook the day.
Calling for his head, and Newcastle came and gifted him and Chelsea 3 points. It was an ideal opportunity today in that European race, which we keep talking about. 4 points ahead, could have been 7 today. They've gifted Chelsea a route back into it, and they aren't a good side. That's the frustrating thing about it. You come to Chelsea in recent years, and look, this is a hard ground to come to. It's not that anymore. We've talked about it before. Wolves have came here in recent weeks and won. We even said it before. I think any top 16 would have came here and won today. Chelsea weren't great, but Newcastle gifted them goals, and that's been the tale for a lot of weeks now. They've gifted teams goals. How many goals? Again, this isn't just highlighting one area because I think there's more issues across the team. How many goals have came through that left-hand side? Botman, Byrne, 2 players who struggle today, but I'm not going to sit and call them out because it wasn't a great team performance by any stretch. I thought the only player that emerged with, or 2 players that emerged with some credit. Tino Livramento, I thought was brilliant, particularly in the first half. Jacob Murphy, which you two might not agree with, but
Not for me, no.
Good
goal.
It was a great goal.
Got excellent goal. Put some really dangerous crosses in the box. And I suppose that
If you're the first man.
we'll disagree on this.
Well,
I thought he was alright. I mean, probably a word for Bruno, I feel like, because he tried, but he just couldn't get on the ball enough. He made a really small pass for Isaac's goal, but couldn't get on the ball enough. But I thought he was okay. Apart from that, I thought it was a pretty dire performance, and as I say, one that just reflects the recent weeks. This team isn't making progress. If anything, it's going backwards. I know that Newcastle have picked up some injuries tonight, Anthony Gordon being the main one, but in recent weeks Newcastle have welcomed back players from injury. Obviously Harvey Barnes, I should mention there. They've welcomed back players in recent weeks, and it hasn't really aided them. You think about the run of games that they've had. Eddie Howe called it a good run, but draws against Bournemouth, Luton, scraped win at Nottingham Forest. So he said that was a good run. For me, that's not a good run. You're playing teams at the bottom of the table.
Throw in there Fulham, who rested half their team, and they went and won in the FA Cup and scraped past Blackburn. Outplayed by Blackburn and scraped through in the FA Cup. It's a myth that Newcastle United have been playing well.
Yeah, it's
a myth.
No, I agree. You can look at all the stats and figures in terms of, we've been unbeaten for 3 games there, but the other stats that I made clear is Newcastle United are leaking goals for fun, and it doesn't look like it's going to come to an end. They're playing this board last week where Eddie Howe made a tweak where they sat back, soaked up the pressure, counter-attack Wolves.
Why didn't he do it today?
Well, exactly because within the first 5 minutes, the press is in full flight again. So he's had that one change last week. It's been the same way of playing, same tactics for a long time now. And it's not working. Newcastle United
it's less intense.
are the key of being inconsistent. They're the most inconsistent team in the Premier League as we stand, and they're the elitiest defence in the Premier League. And
the consistent.
So so I'm just going to say, like, I'm going to disagree with you too much because I think your sentiment is absolutely spot on. But they are, I think they're genuinely consistent. I think they're genuinely consistent. We're going to get thrown out here, but they're genuinely consistent in being poor. They're genuinely consistent in looking like a mid-table team who concedes too many goals and doesn't look like winning enough games. I think we're about to get thrown out here. Apologies. Right, not ideal. I don't know how much of you caught on that bit, that we were kicked out of Stamford Bridge. You know the drill. It always happens with the Geordie Journos. First in, last out. Hardest working journalists on the beat, I think. Right, I think we've got to a point, Dom, where I was going to ask you about the press conference. I think everyone out there, by the time they see this video, will have probably already seen what Eddie Howe said to Sky, bits and bobs that have come out of the press conference. For me, not being in the press conference, seems pretty remarkable that he was consistently, as you've told us, saying Newcastle played well.
Yes, that was the consistent message. I asked what went wrong for Eddie Howe and his side tonight, and he said individual errors, the goals conceded were as poor as he's seen Newcastle concede, which probably agree with. Every goal was individual mistakes. Sven Botman failed clearance for the first one, no one picking up Cole Palmer for the second.
Botman for the third one, man.
Third one easily turned, and then Fabian Schär as well. Martin Dubravka gets rounded quite easily. So yeah, three. Sorry, I'll just let the rabble pass. But yeah, three really poor goals for Newcastle to concede. So I agreed with that from Eddie Howe. Did not agree with the fact Newcastle played well. I think there were parts of the game where Newcastle were in it, particularly in the first half, where I thought when Alexander Isak scored a very good equaliser, Newcastle deserved that and they deserved to go in 1-1. And you felt at half-time there was the momentum there with Newcastle, even though they lost Anthony Gordon, but there was the momentum there to kick on and really put the game to Chelsea.
Quickly jump in on that. I felt at that moment, because I'll probably forget to say this, it was when Newcastle got that equaliser, it was
you felt it in the ground,
it.
yeah.
Like, you had maybe had to be there, but it was palpable. Like, literally the confidence stripped from the team, and it goes back to the point that you were making, I think earlier, Jordan, about Mauricio Pochettino. Chelsea were the team under pressure today. Newcastle gifted them a chance to get back in the game, and then didn't turn up in the second half either. After got themselves back, having gifted the opportunity.
Did it twice, shot themselves in the foot twice. They had sort of went into the game with the momentum over Chelsea, shot themselves in the foot with that early goal, really poor goal, then got themselves back into the game, had a bit of momentum heading into the second half, and then just didn't really show in the second half, probably until they were 3-1 down, until they brought on the likes of Joe White and Lewis Miley in the midfield, had a bit of fresh legs, because it was nowhere near for the most part. At times Bruno had that one bit of class where he played through Alexander Isak, but Sean Longstaff, a player who we've praised consistently at the start of the season and was that midfield engine, if you like,
It's
just
same as
stalling.
It's not the size, it's a fair point to make.
Hey, what are you doing here?
Filming a
video.
For what?
Who are you?
YouTube. For what?
Yeah, YouTube, yeah.
Yeah.
Geordie Journos.
Huh?
Geordie Journos, like, comment, share and subscribe.
No.
Come on, mate.
No.
Go on, off your pop. Right, no idea what we got to there when there was an interruption from some merry German fans. What's his name? Mannheim? Don't know. I'll just leave it. Right, Howard, Dom. Longstaff, talk to us.
Right.
I was saying about Longstaff how he was basically the midfield dynamo. They've had a good night.
You're not gonna let
This is
us
good.
do
This
this,
is
are you?
good.
This is worse than Paris.
Just
Honestly,
keep going,
we're
lads.
crumbling worse than Eddie Howe's defence. Yeah.
Keep going, lads. You said Longstaff was stalling, having been the midfield engine.
Yeah, because he was so important for Newcastle at the start of the season, and he actually got into the side ahead of Sandro Tonali and was a key player for Newcastle United. He scored quite a lot of goals this season as well, 6 goals this season. But the past month or so, since he returned from injury, looks like a player who's just
Not the
lost
same, is he?
maybe a yard or two. He's not getting to anything. He's
Doesn't
not
make a tackle
winning
anymore?
tackles. He's not as precise in his passing. And look, I mean, you don't want to single out too many players, but we'll pretty much single out every player in our videos. But
No. So the other one. Look. I don't know how long we're going to get to do this video, but Sven Botman for me
who
doesn't.
mentioned before.
Who have mentioned. I think Eddie Howe. This is on his shoulders. If the player's not right, physically, take him out the team. If he's not right mentally, which to me looks like he's suffering massively, also take him out the team. He needs to show some cojones and look at his bench and say, if I've got a club captain, Newcastle United's club captain, who's just got a new 1-year extension on my bench, why am I not putting him back in the team and playing him? Take Sven Botman out the firing line. To me, he's either a lad who looks like he's struggling physically or has lost and potentially lost confidence in the injury that he had because of some seeming mismanagement, if that's what you want to call it, when you play a Premier League and Champions League game with a knackered knee, which most of the time requires an operation, and may well still require an operation. We still don't really know the answer to that. He needs to show a bit of leadership and take that player out of the team, in my opinion. There's a few like that. I think Newcastle are floundering, they're faltering. They're not a team who look like they're heading in the right direction. Newcastle United's foundation of success, of maybe not necessarily the first 6 months, but last season in particular, it was a foundation built on we will run harder than you, we'll chase harder than you, we'll press harder than you, we will be fitter than you from minute 1 to minute 90. That was the foundation of what Newcastle United had success on last season. It wasn't showing more quality than everybody else. No. It wasn't outpassing teams or dominating possession. It was we will run harder, we will chase harder, and we'll be fitter. And there's none of that now, so you need to change your approach. It's not working, the foundation is gone. 400 million down the line, is it entitlement? Is it fair? Is it not? To say this team looks like it's going to finish about 10th or 11th, the way it's playing. It could easily finish 11th. How many games head start did they have that first season when Newcastle United remarkably finished 11th under Eddie Howe? That's not entitlement to save progress. And fans can expect better than that. There has been mitigating circumstances this season. You can't get away from that. But there will not be an asterisk at the end of this season saying Newcastle United had more injuries and more days off than anybody else. It'll just show that Newcastle United finished 11th or 10th or 9th or wherever they did. It'll not show that in the history books. And that's what Eddie Howe needs to face up to. Progress is needed. They're not showing many signs of it. A lot of noise going on here. Probably the worst thing we could have had kicked out at Stamford Bridge. Right, lads, talk about a few other key moments. Is there anything else we need?
I think the big one, Anthony Gordon injury,
yeah, massive.
Which, on a bad night for Newcastle, just makes things that bit worse. Where I asked Eddie Howe how he was doing, not 100%, but said it doesn't look good for Anthony Gordon. And if Eddie Howe's saying that when he's still not entirely sure what the nature of the injury is, he said it was a knee injury that was coming on. I think we'll get on to what brought Anthony Gordon to come off the pitch, but yeah, not looking good on the week leading up to the England squad being announced is a nightmare blow for Anthony Gordon, really, who's been so good for Newcastle this season, and now looks like he's set for...
He was going to be in that squad, wasn't he?
He was there, and now
Tino Livramento might well be in it as well.
Yeah, I think it was an interesting night where Tino Livramento you probably didn't have has been in the England squad, but now great performance tonight, or good performance in the context of a poor Newcastle performance. Probably get into it, and then Anthony Gordon injured. Looks like he's going to be out of it, but Eddie Howe said more clarity on that in the coming days. But yeah, not looking good for Anthony Gordon.
Did Eddie Howe say afterwards that Gordon had picked up an injury early on the game?
He said it wasn't an incident. It wasn't one incident. He said he was gradually starting to feel his knee, and then it just became too much. And then yeah, the physio came on. Anthony Gordon said he's never seen the physio all season in a recent interview, and as soon as the physio goes near him, he's wincing in pain, isn't he, Lou?
I've never seen a player jump backwards off a pitch so quick almost. He's never seen the physio all season, and he said he doesn't want to see him. I don't think he'll want to see him after that. That was a sharp shooting pain in the old injured knee. I've remarkably not seen much like that. You've got to test if the knee's injured, but didn't look great. As I mentioned in the live, as you can imagine, I was talking to my previous knee injury.
Oh, were you?
Stopped you from turning pro, didn't it?
Stopped us from turning pro and kicking a ball for 10 years actually. Probably a favour to many a footballer out there, or a potential teammate, that I didn't kick a ball for 10 years. Right. Negative night, in my opinion. Newcastle United aren't just going backwards. You guys said it more politely than I will. You said one step forward, two back. I think it's more than that. I think the context of tonight, Chelsea were under pressure. Newcastle United could have really added to that pressure tonight. Newcastle United didn't have a lot of pressure. They just had to make sure they didn't get beat in this little mini race. They don't look like a team that's going to head towards Europe. They don't look like a team that deserves to be heading towards Europe, in my opinion. Chelsea weren't very good either. Chelsea didn't have to massively outperform Newcastle United today to get 3 points, and they got 3 points at a canter, in my opinion. Dan Burns saved it being it would have went 4-1 at one point, wouldn't it? Where you cleared one off the line.
From Fabian Schär as well, who we've praised so often. But yeah,
look, Fabian Schär is a quality defender, but when things start going badly,
there's a head loss quality.
Yes, then there always has been, and we're starting to see it more often in recent weeks than what we've seen it probably in the year before that, because he's been a very structured, non-chaotic team. I thought that second half was chaos today.
More chaos.
Utter chaos. Really chaotic. You mentioned Bruno being not too bad. The lad's probably never slept for 2 nights. I didn't think he was great, but he was far from the worst. Joe Willock never kicked the ball, in my opinion, today. Sean Longstaff was really poor.
He's a passenger. Longstaff and Willock, really.
Yes.
But Joe Willock here a bit more forgiving.
Livramento was the only one. He was the only one for me today.
Yeah. Isak scored a great goal indeed.
And was poor. He'll admit that himself, but there'll come a point where, you know, there's only so much, your 2 major bits of quality in the team. That's not fair on Gordon and Livramento, because they are, look, I'm not saying they're not quality, but what I'm saying is the 2 guaranteed quality who've done it for years, not just at Newcastle but elsewhere, is Bruno and Isak. They're not going to put up with this kind of stuff for too much longer. I think they both want to stay at the football club and progress with Newcastle United, but you know, if you end up finishing 10th or 12th or 13th, or start slipping down the division in a dismal end of the season, they just need to be careful, because that's not how you attract players and progress. And Eddie Howe needs to be careful. He's got a lot of questions to answer, in my opinion. This isn't these guys' opinion. These guys have a totally different opinion. Shout at me if you think I'm Mr. Negative. He had all the excuses in the world at the start of the season. He was given those excuses by everybody else. He never really preached them himself, but he talked of 3 games in weeks, injury crisis beyond any other. In my opinion, the performances Newcastle United are putting in now are worse than when they were at their worst in the injury crisis. They're less robust as a team now than what they were in that crisis. They were guilty during that crisis of falling foul at the end of games and maybe running out of steam, having done okay. Now they genuinely look quite disorganised and all over the shop at periods. That second half today was just disjointed chaos.
I think the injury crisis back in like December, when it started coming, it was more like Newcastle running out of steam. Now it's like a soft underbelly, which is much more concerning.
Which hasn't been what they've shown at all.
No.
They were a team who could go behind against anybody and show spirit to come back from it. And they've done that at times this season. They've done that in times in the last 6 weeks. Luton, other games have come from behind, from adversity, but it's coming from a low base. It's genuinely come from a low base. You're getting played off the park by Luton, who scored 4 goals at St James's Park. You're having to rescue it. It's not been good enough. It's nowhere near good enough. I think for all the cash in the bank that Eddie Howe's had, he's got a lot of questions to answer. A lot of questions to answer. He needs to find answers, and where are the answers? There's the odd tactical tweak here and there. I thought the tactical tweak last week worked. I think, from my opinion, I would have done the same again today. Hindsight's a wonderful thing, but anybody who's spoken before was saying the same thing in the press room. I'd be surprised if he breaks from that counter-attack and away team mentality. He did. He went press high, which is maybe what he couldn't do when they came here in December, because they didn't have the bodies. And they could have had success winning the ball high. They didn't do it. Defensively, they were awful today and gifted goals away. There was so much wrong with today that I just can't understand how he's come out with saying there's positives to take from it. Because that, in my opinion, given the context of the whole situation, they need to get up, you know, and you're in a little battle against the teams around you. You're against a team who's piling the pressure on their own manager, who are struggling, who can't find answers anywhere. All of a sudden you come here and put in a performance that is way off where you should put it, and gifting teams goals, gifting them opportunities, gifting them confidence. I think in the context of things, this is one of the worst, particularly that 10-15 minutes in the second half, is one of the worst we've seen in quite some time. Come at us in the comments if you think I'm wrong, but I'm as you'll see in the live, I'm really disappointed by what we saw. I'm disappointed by what we're seeing consistently. The foundations of this team that did well all of last season does not exist anymore. It is absolutely obliterated. So you need to find another way.
Yeah. I think.
What's the other way? Is there another way?
But that's the issue, isn't it?
It's not us to say there is it really? We're not paid millions of pounds per year to make these decisions.
It's
So-
concerning. It's concerning because it goes back to what we've touched on before, the original concerns you would have had when Eddie Howe was appointed as manager,
That's fair.
where the last season is almost the exception to the rule, and maybe obviously the 6 months is first 6 to 8 months in charge as well, where Newcastle were a good counter-attacking team. Now they're sort of neither really. They can show glimpses of being a decent counter-attacking team as they did against Wolves last weekend, but the defensive solidarity, and you're talking about outworking teams last season, which Newcastle did. They didn't really outthink teams. Now teams are outworking them, and Newcastle aren't able to outthink them.
Is it a hangover from the crisis? Is it just they haven't got it in them anymore? It doesn't feel like that to me. It feels like that they're obviously not pressing like today. Even when they did the high press and it came back, it wasn't the same intensity. It wasn't quite what it was before. Is that do they have faith in it anymore? Is there a confidence there that this way of playing works? Because even when they were playing that way, they get caught on the break so many times.
It's one too many players dropping off the cliff.
There is, yeah.
Less than ideal moments as well. Not that there's ever an ideal moment, but yeah, Trippier in December, Botman past couple of months, Sean Longstaff past couple of months, Miguel Almiron had a poor spell as well. Dan Burn had a poor spell. There's too many players who were so consistent and solid last season who have had really quite poor runs in the team, and it goes back to Eddie Howe's sort of persistence or loyalty to those players, continually using them and maybe not taking out the team. Took Sven Botman out for Blackburn, but then straight back in, and then keeps him in the side tonight as well. And I think you're right, Liam. Eddie Howe has got a big decision to make moving forward, because he's a player who, like Sean Longstaff, looks like he's still carrying something and is not quite anywhere near really. I say not
So they're
quite.
down there or up there, and
Yeah.
either way you look at it, I think he's got to take him out of the team, and that wouldn't be a disrespect to the player. You've just got to pull him aside and say, look, if it's not right, it's not right. I'm going to put the club captain in. He's going to play at the end of the season. There's no problem with that, no problem at all. But there's a few. The reason why I keep talking about Botman, in my opinion, I don't know if I mentioned it on this video or the live, it's hard to know, and I've done so many videos at the end of games, is Botman has a lot more focus in my view, because he's gone from there straight down there. Burn, Longstaff, who are playing equally as badly, particularly Longstaff at the moment, have probably gone from there down to there. The drop off of Botman's been quite incredible, which makes you think there's got to be more to this than meets the eye, because the guy looked a very composed, particularly passer of the ball. He was shot shy today. There was times when he was totally gun shy. There was times where he could have played across the crossfield to Livramento. It was on all the way through that first half. He played it once in about the 40th minute. Didn't want to play the ball. Slowed the game down massively when he gets the ball. Never used to be that. It used to be between him and Shaw, quite quickly ping crossfield from either one. Doesn't happen anymore. There's something not quite right. Sean Longstaff, he's a player who was probably overperforming like Dan Burn last season, and has dropped off a bit and doesn't look anywhere near what he was before. But with Sven Botman, it's been cliff proportions, like genuinely, which makes you think there's got to be more to it. Jordan, you got anything much to add?
Yeah,
'Cause
I feel like I've stood like a plum for about 20 minutes.
I know, I thought that's what I'm saying. Come on, you can come in.
I just think since December, Newcastle's form has been close to relegation form.
Probably
And
has,
Eddie
right?
Howe has been very processed. This is the way we play. We're going to stick to playing this way. And the thing that concerns me is I've seen no adaptations from Eddie Howe in terms of the formation and different ways of playing. Apart from that Wolves game,
20 minutes at Forest.
it's just it's just been the same, and that concerns me, because Newcastle. Let's not remember, we talked about the injury crisis, etc. Newcastle were actually 5th or 6th in the Premier League at the beginning of December, so they've now dropped from then challenging the Champions League to where they are now, 10th. Okay, yes, there's mitigating factors. I get
But
that.
they've dropped about 20 points on the likes of
But
bloody
how many-
Forest and Villa and teams like this. They've dropped so far behind them.
Yeah.
They're 15 points behind Villa. Or Tottenham. One of the two of them. It's incredible how far they've dropped.
40 points, is it?
Yeah, 40.
The drop off is.
It's 70 odd last season.
I don't be getting that. I don't think the drop off is acceptable, to be honest. I get the mitigating circumstances, I get it. I get they've got injuries.
Not now though.
But
They've
I
got
know.
less
Well,
injuries
I said
now.
that at the start.
Yeah, you're right. You're spot on. Where the excuses that he was given at the start of the season, whereas he couldn't rotate, he couldn't do this, he couldn't do that. They've been largely moot points, I would say, in the last month when he's had a few extra options and been able to rotate. The performances haven't really got that much better. It's not good.
No.
That's as I
But
said.
what makes it concerning is Eddie Howe coming out and saying, "Oh, we
Yeah.
played well tonight," and reinforce that point, but then also almost put the onus on his players by saying individual mistakes let them down. So he's almost sounds brutal
And
to
it
say.
is-
He's almost covering his own back by saying that.
Is the again? I've touched on this in a previous video. Is an acceptance behind the scenes that the season is just a drop off? Because I said since the start of the season, I thought about this drop off from teams that qualify for Europe and actually have a drop off in the second season. Are they accepting that, and that is the case, and they're just happy to run with it until the end of the season and just see where
So
they
is
finish?
it a chance?
For me,
Is it?
that's not progress.
It doesn't make sense because the drop off. Fair enough. Okay, there was a drop off. Newcastle were the informed team during the Champions League bracket. So when they were playing games, and then okay, what about the other teams? What about Brighton, Aston Villa,
Aston Villa's back
West
in Europe.
Ham, who are all in Europe and have all still in Europe?
Yeah,
By the
yeah,
way,
yeah,
okay, Brighton are probably on the verge of going out, but still have European games and are all above Newcastle.
Brighton's the one who haven't dealt with it. The rest, Villa, obviously they're having their wobbles. They're having
an easier competition.
but they are in an easier competition. But where's their drop off? They've not been in Europe. Villa's not been in Europe. They were a Championship team, 5 years ago. It's not like Villa have suddenly been a European qualifier year in year out, and they've got better. They've got better with having European football on their career. It's probably the worst European football, not in standards worse of course, but the one that everyone talks about, the Thursday night. The Thursday night's difficult to deal with. Everyone talks about it. They've dealt with it all right, and they're probably going to finish in the Champions League this season. I think it's a myth. I'm sorry.
I think Eddie-
it was a
Eddie
ready-made
Howe has said
excuse
that
at the
though,
start
by
of the
the way.
season, has he?
Yeah, he said. He said
It was
he
a
doesn't
documentary,
make
wasn't
much
it? When
difference.
they were talking about it, it was one of them. Was it Ashworth? The
Yeah,
man
that's
that
it,
nobody
yeah.
speaks of now. The man that everybody blames Lewis Hall transfer on social media as well. But we'll talk about that in a minute. That's honestly,
There's
I've
so
seen all
many-
sorts. I've seen all
There's
sorts.
so many things you could nitpick about this season. Go back to Sven Botman's injury, Lewis Hall's transfer.
Joe Linton's had about 3 injuries, and none of them have been managed right.
Just the management of, in all regards, but
Anthony
yeah.
Gordon. How's your knee, mate? Whoa, snap it back. Right, I think we should stand on that.
Yeah,
We're all
it's
delirious.
not been a,
It'll be around the house.
it's not been our finest video, but yeah.
It might. You might watch it back and think it was good.
I don't know.
The live was good. Loads of you out there, you might be watching this again.
That was good. You weren't.
No, I was going to thank everyone actually, because they haven't really done that well recently. And then there was like lots of you guys getting involved, and do keep it coming. We do have our mix. We'll have our lives. We'll have our shorts. We do obviously these analysis videos. Give it all the support if you're enjoying it. Like, comment, share, subscribe. You know the drill. Press the bell. You know what to do. We're the Geordie Journos.
We're back.
Home and away.
We'll be back at Eddie Howe's pre-match press conference on Friday, Man City.
Oh.
Season sort of rests on it, and I said, well, there's still hope if they win that, but
They're
not
look,
gonna.
if they go and win it, they'll just get beat off Liverpool in the semi-final.
yeah, we shouldn't laugh. But yeah, if they play anywhere near like they have recently,
They're not winning
they
a
don't-
trophy
they don't-
playing like
they
that.
don't stand a hope. But you never know.
They're not getting into Europe, and they're not playing a trophy if they play consistently like they did there. A lot of the game against Wolves and the games previous to that, particularly at Arsenal. Individual errors is costing them, but I think it's more than that. It's more collective, and I think it's a philosophy problem.
Okay.
It's a process. Stick to the process, but the process, which has served Newcastle so well, isn't working at the moment. So what happens when the process doesn't work?
You change it.
You try to change it, and as I go back to my point, I've seen no effort from Eddie Howe to change it, and that concerns me. That does. It's a big.
You'll disagree
Big
with you
emphasis.
though, Eddie Howe. You'll
Well, he did,
disagree.
it was
He
a
says
few weeks ago, he
we
said
have
it's not the
multiple ways.
formation.
Look, so this is another thing. Gonna have to mention this because there was some criticism coming our way.
Yeah.
No idea. There was some criticism coming the way in the live. There was a few people coming on saying the Geordie Journos, they're not asking the right questions. These guys do. I'm not in the press conferences. These guys have put it on him in the last few weeks with a few questions. You don't have to look back. Look, we're not saying to put it on him and saying, you deserve this, you deserve that. That's just kind of not the way things work. But these guys have asked the awkward questions. He doesn't answer them. He doesn't answer them. So the awkward questions will ramp up if the results keep being poor. Will he answer the questions?
Yeah, the problem I've had with Eddie Howe is when I have put it on him, he's nitpicked a single word I've said.
Yes.
I've said, how is this chaos sustainable? How can it carry on?
It's
You
not
go,
chaos.
"Oh, it wasn't chaos today." So
He's the ultimate politician, isn't he?
he finds ways of dodging.
What was the other
questions.
one where you said flogging players?
Yeah, I said you've
Lewis
been flogging Lewis Miley, and he said, "Well, don't agree."
Flogged him.
Yeah.
So these guys are putting it on a little bit within reason. You know, it's not the time to absolutely
I think-
put it on, but you've given them some. You haven't given them an easy time, even though that's what people seem to think. But it's not just on these guys. Everybody's going to do it collectively. So stop the criticism. Don't like it.
You have to play a careful game
You
because
do.
we're not fans on Twitter. We see Eddie Howe
No.
3 times a week.
Yes,
So.
and look, we talk about being fans of fans, but journalists first in the job perspective. We're Newcastle fans before we're ever journalists, but it pays the bills, so you've got to do it right. You cannot just be spouting off and saying what you want. I've seen some people come on as well and say, "Should let the fans in there." It's not going to work. It's never going to happen. On that note, right, like, comment, share, subscribe for all your Geordie Journos content. For more from these guys, pre-Man City. Can't wait for that.